The Let's Go Washington folks who are appealing the Attorney General's recently released public investment impact disclosure for Initiative 645 have provided some new information for us here at the Center Square. Basically, calling this impact statement that will accompany the uh, I 645 on your ballot, saying this is nothing more than government advocacy masked as transparency. So the PIID statement to appear with the income tax repeal initiative on the ballot states this. I'll read this. This measure would decrease funding for public K 12 education, higher education, including universities and community colleges, and human services, primarily healthcare. But according to Let's Go Washington, that is not accurate at all because nothing is being cut from programs by voting yes for Initiative 645. Now, remember, this is the millionaire's tax that will, for 2028 earnings to be paid in 2029, take 9.9% of earnings above $1 million or combined household earnings above $1 million. But there's nothing there yet. So the contention from Let's Go Washington is that you can't fairly state on the ballot that we're cutting funding when there's no funding yet, as a result of this, because we don't have any money from the income tax initiative as yet. So here is Darren Littell in a Tuesday interview with the Center Square.
And it was pretty clear that right off the bat, it's not accurate because nothing is being cut from programs in through by voting yes for Initiative 645. All the funding is there, and the only thing that we're cutting is an income tax. So Initiative 645, the only thing it cuts is an income tax, and it's speculation as far as potential future impact. And the way that the PIID is written, it's supposed to be for actual impact. And so if you look at what 645 does, the only thing is it cuts a $10 million plus government bureaucracy from being set up. So, in fact, it saves money for folks and it returns it to the budget. And so the statement should actually be saying that this is going to increase funding for the general fund in Washington state. And so that's what we filed our appeal for, and we're looking forward to having the hearing. The additional savings is going to come from Department of Revenue hires that aren't going to need to be made, from setting up a bureaucracy that's not going to be needed, from having to defend a lawsuit against an unconstitutional income tax. Those are all the things that are happening right now. Those are the only things that have actual appropriations tied to them from the 2026 budget. And so everything else is just speculation. And the state has held over and over again that you can't hold a future legislature to what is currently going on. And so anything that's speculation shouldn't be there. And the other thing that I think is important is I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. You cannot cut money that doesn't exist. How can you possibly cut a budget that doesn't exist, funding that doesn't exist? But the PIID and the way that the Attorney General wrote it, they're pretending like this tax has already been enacted. It's been bringing in money for years. It's just not the case. It's still 2 years away from being in law enacted.
Now, Littell at LGW argues that ultimately the repeal of the income tax measure will save taxpayers money. And he's talking about the savings that would come from the Department of Revenue investments. Right in the bill for the income tax initiative 6346 says they have to hire a bunch of folks to work at the Department of Revenue. Folks that will have to, figure out when folks are paying this, millionaires that are paying this tax, they have to figure out how much they owe, where that goes. So there's a whole giant fiscal note attached to this. So their contention is that if we don't have to hire those folks, we're going to be saving money. We also don't have to pay for hiring attorneys to defend the income tax in court. You're probably well aware there's already a constitutional challenge to the income tax. So the contention from Let's Go Washington is it's ultimately going to save money to repeal this because you won't have to hire all these people for the Department of Revenue. and you won't have to pay a bunch of, taxpayer funded attorneys to fight this. And so, as we reported last week, there is a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the PIID law that was passed in 2022 that places an impact disclosure statement alongside ballot initiatives. So we'll be following that. That was filed by Arthur West on July 24th in Thurston County Superior Court. He is seeking expedited review for that. He told me he was hoping for an August 7th court date potentially, because remember, it is by August 21 that language has to be finalized on the Washington ballots for November. And so all this has to be, played out pretty quickly in the courts for any of these challenges. So Littell at Let's Go Washington told me he believes that voters are smarter than the AG's office contends, because the AG's office says we got to put these PIIDs up because voters don't understand that if they repeal the income tax measure through this initiative, that they're going to be impacting state budgets. And LGW says that's not the case. We think voters are a heck of a lot smarter than that.
This is, government advocacy masked as transparency. They have poll tested and looked to see what the most damaging statements could possibly be. And then that's what ends up being printed in this uh, public statement. And it's ridiculous, honestly. And the fact that they put one side on there from somebody who is openly campaigning against this, they want to keep the income tax. uh, Nick Brown has said, hey, this income tax is a good thing, and he's been doing everything he can to make sure that people are paying the income tax here in Washington State. And so, do you think he's going to write a fair and balanced statement? It's silly, really, and it's clear that he has done everything he can to make sure that this is as damaging as possible to the initiative effort to repeal the income tax.
So, a hearing on Let's Go Washington's appeal to this statement that would appear alongside their initiative to potentially repeal the income tax. A hearing on that could be held next week. It's going to be Thurston County Superior Court, a decision on that. Maybe late next week. We wait for some confirmation from the court on that. And again, ballots for the November election expected to be finalized by August 21st. So the clock is ticking on all of that.